We are going to spend some time today talking about questions that you might have about grades, technology, schedules, that kind of thing. Also, we're going to go over the basic stuff for second semester. It's a new course, so I want to spend some time talking about the differences between the two classes and what to expect here in 2321. It's hard to remember when I'm looking right at a screen that says 2021. So welcome back, everybody, and Happy New Year. I hope that 2021 is an improvement for us. And everybody's saying that. Everybody's hopeful. But we have the vaccine on the horizon, right? Hopefully. New president. All right, I'm going to go to the Google Classroom. We don't have access to Blackboard until the 18th or the 19th of the month. So I set up some things so that we could get started today. And I'll explain to you why I felt like it was important for us to start right away as we go through today's material. But if you click where it says Tuesday 1-5 right there, we have a few things to talk about before we get into the raw materials for the class. Let's talk about tech issues. You probably already know that the gradebook / portal is still not up and running. That is true also for teachers. We have not had access to the gradebook since the Friday before we went out on break. So they have delayed the upload of grades, obviously, since it's not possible right now. Yesterday, they told us it was going to be up by 1 o'clock, and that didn't happen, and it's still not available. They gave us a deadline for uploading our grades tomorrow at noon, but I think they're going to have to push that back again because they still don't have the gradebook up and running. From what I understand, we were told yesterday that they did pinpoint how the breach occurred. Somebody got in through a laptop, and I guess that person, I don't know if it's a hacker or if you call them, what you call them, ransom person, data kidnapper, I don't know. They did pinpoint it to a laptop. It was an East laptop, but it had been loaned to one of the elementary schools. I don't know which one. So, I mean, I don't think the person who had the laptop was the perpetrator, but that's how they got in. And so a lot of the systems are still down. You cannot get the internet at school, so all the teachers are teaching from home again this week. You can still go to school if you're a hybrid student, and they have proctors and things to, keep students in classrooms, but there's no internet at school and you're not allowed to use your hotspots. So I guess you would just be sitting there. I guess that's for people who their parents need them to go to school. What else? Tech issues. Yeah, so I don't know when grades are going to be available. I don't think your grade's going to be that different from your STC grade. Maybe a little bit up and down, but not significant. There are a couple more assignments that we do for the East grade compared to the STC grade in the first semester. So I don't anticipate that your grades will be, drastically different. I'm still checking people in here. Let's see, who else? Who's missing? All right. Schedules, I'm sure that you've seen several of your teachers post for the administration. They tweet all of the updates. If you're not following the school on Twitter, you might want to do that. I retweet them, different people retweet them, and if I find it especially pertinent, then I'll usually post it here on Google Classroom too to help everybody out in terms of communication. But they did announce that you're going to be following your first semester schedule. until next week. They don't have access to the system where they can print out schedules or make schedules available. They can't access the system that lets Google Classroom populate with your new classes. When there's a new semester, Google Classroom will make new classrooms for you. So if you're in a class that is a semester class and you're switching, say, to a speech class or something else, then you're on hold until Monday for that class change. That's the current information that I have. I'll probably switch over to the new class when they create it, just because this one has a whole lot of stuff in it. I'll put all the pertinent stuff over there and we'll continue with this one, but this is good for communication and, you know, like for right now when we don't have access to Blackboard reminders and things like that. What else about schedules? There are some people who are not continuing on with 2321, which is this semester, and they're taking either regular English 4 or something else. They don't need this course. So if that's the case, you still need to get attendance credit in class until Thursday. I have to mark you present or absent until Thursday, and then Monday would start your new classes, whatever those might be. There are also some people that are graduating, or finishing, I guess. They're not gonna have a graduation ceremony, but there were some people that informed me that they had enough credits that they were just gonna be finishing, so yeah. Any questions about the tech issues or schedules or anything like that? Anything else that I didn't put on the updates list that I can look into for you that you're wondering about? No?
No.
Okay. Well, it's good to hear a voice in the wilderness. All right. I want to spend a little time talking about the switch over to the 2321 class. So if you click right here, you'll see that I made a website. This is on the classwork section of the Google Classroom right here where it says sign in. So it's going to be 2.5 weeks before, 2 weeks before you can get onto the Blackboard. So I thought the best way to get organized would be just to create a website, an interim website. This is just for these 3 weeks until you have access to Blackboard. I have access to Blackboard, but you can't see anything that I do on there. So there's no point to that. So this will be our little hub for the next couple of weeks I'm gonna go through some things on here today. And also there are some resources here to help you as we get started with our new material. So you'll see that I made a little dashboard right here of some important links. We might as well talk about the textbook right now. The textbook for this course is Norton Anthology of British Literature, edition 9. This is an enormous book. It weighs 47 pounds, not quite. It's got, I don't know, almost 5,000 pages. That's a lot. So you can do 2 things. You can return your book from the first semester. We're not going to use those books, so you do have to return those books. I have informed them that they need to have these books available in case you would like to check them out. If you like to do little post-its, if you like to have a book, if it makes you feel smart to have a big fat book, then you can certainly go and check this one out. If you do not need to do that, I found a PDF online of the 8th edition. This is the 9th edition. So this one is a little bit different, but I don't think it's significantly different from the 8th edition. So if you want to, you can just use the PDF of the 8th edition, and I have that here for you. So you can click on that, and then I think it's better to save it to your computer or your laptop because it's a very long document, 3,000 some odd pages. So you might want to save it to your computer. It will open faster. Like when I start scrolling, you can see that it has trouble keeping up with, because I'm looking at it online. So if I need to go to page, 426, You know, I can scroll over here on the little elevator thing, but it takes a while to catch up so that I can read it. But I think it's a good alternative in case you're not going to get the book. And for the first couple of weeks, I'll be referencing pages in the PDF. So when I give a reading assignment, then it will come from the PDF. So you might want to download that. I just was trying to look for a solution that would make it easier for you, and maybe you don't have to get the book. If you want to get the book, you can. There are Chrome add-ons where you can use a PDF and annotate too. So if you download your own copy of that, then you can also annotate it using one of those programs. I like the one called Kami, K-A-M-I. But whatever way works for you, as long as you can read your reading assignments. Also, I created a course calendar. So let me give you a little background on that, just so that you're aware. First semester was a course that I designed. I mean, I designed it based on the requirements for STC. Last spring, STC determined that they were going to be 100% virtual in the fall. And so they made all of the instructors do training in the summer. And part of that training was that we had to create an entire semester course. And we had to get it approved from 3 different departments on campus. And, you know, every little piece of everything had to be there. So I did that and everything got approved. And I thought, all right, I'm ready to teach my class. Well, then 2 weeks before classes started in August, the English department at STC said, hey, here's a course that we created. You can use that if you want. Well, I looked at it and it wasn't as, you know, complete and fleshed out as the one that I had done in the summer. So I thought, well, I'm just going to teach the course that I created. And it was approved and everything. So it's not like it was insufficient. So I taught the course, and then I had my evaluation in December, and he's not the department chair, he's the chair of the dual enrollment. He said, why didn't you use the department one? And I said, well, if you had given it to me sooner, I could have looked at it and, you know, added to it to make it, you know, a sufficient course for me to teach, but I got it 2 weeks before the class started, so I used mine. And he goes, well, we want you to use the department ones from here on out. So, all right. So they still hadn't given us the ones for this semester when I was speaking to him. So I asked him, when is the one coming out for 2321, so that I can look at that and see what it's about. And it came out the following week. So I spent the break looking through all of the material and the requirements for the Department 2321 course. And for me to make sense of it, I needed to put it in a timeline. I needed to put it in a calendar. So that's what I did. And you can click here and you have access to view that calendar. And it's for the whole term. 2321 is a very reading heavy semester. There is a very long reading list. And I was looking at that list and trying to figure out how are we going to be able to fit that in to our weekly structure. And I couldn't do it with 1 day a week. So I thought, well, we'll just meet on all the days that we can, and I will help you through the material. Some weeks you're going to be reading 100 pages, 80 pages. Some weeks will be a little bit lighter. At the beginning, it's a little bit smaller because the material is older and a little more challenging to read in some ways. But their reading list is extensive. I did go through, and I'm allowed to adjust it to a certain extent. I'm allowed to take things out, put things in, you know, here and there. So I thought, well, I couldn't fit it all in an efficient way that would be fair to you. So I looked at the exam and the midterm to see what was on it, because they've already written them. And I eliminated all the stuff from their list that wasn't on the midterm or the exam, because I mean, it's good to read that stuff, but if you have to take something out, take out the stuff that's not on the exam. Hopefully that makes sense to you. And so this calendar represents what is left. And you'll see I've put in due dates, and I've listed each day of the term what I will be talking about in class. So I will be having a class meeting on every available day, every Tuesday, every Thursday, and every alternate Friday. I'll also be recording all of those class periods and making them available to you. So if something comes up, you can't attend, you have something else you have to do, whatever, you'll still be able to go and watch the discussion over that material. It'll still be available to you. You just won't be able to ask questions in that moment. So what's one of the things that I shifted is that we'll be having a class period every available day in the term. And you can kind of look through the calendar and see that everything is already laid out what I'm going to be talking about every single day of the term. I needed to do that to contextualize the reading list because it's extensive. If I go back to the website, you can see here where it says 3B under lecture playlist, that's where you can go to the YouTube channel, and I'm just going to continue adding all of our class period videos there. So every time we have a class, you can go back and watch the video. Maybe things went too quickly and you want to go back and check something with your notes. Maybe you had to leave early or you came late or whatever. You'll be able to go to those videos to make sure that you have all the information on the readings that are possible. Next thing I want to talk about, I'm going to get to the stuff at the bottom down here, the first 3 weeks. Over here, once you click on adjustments, or you can just look on the screen here. So there are some shifts from first semester, some things that I had to change because of the nature of this semester. This semester is always different because this is British literature. First semester was called Forms of Literature, and that is a survey of genres. So we look at short fiction, we look at poetry, we look at drama. This semester is a history/literature course where we start with the very earliest works in what we could possibly call English and move through almost, but about 2,000 years worth of literature to end up with today. That's a lot of reading. It's not everything that was written, obviously, but it's a survey of that. So there are some differences. This class is structured chronologically. I already talked about the textbook. That's what the cover looks like if you end up going to get a physical copy of the book. Make sure you get this one. Last semester, the office was mixing up the dual class and the AP class, and a lot of the AP kids had to go back a second time to switch out their books because they got the wrong books. So this is just an image of what that looks like in case you need to go in and you want your own copy of the book to have at home. If you want to, I know I've been talking a lot about the reading list. I'm not trying to scare you, but I need to be realistic. If I sugarcoat the amount of reading that happens in this course, then it's sort of like lying. The way that I'm making it easier is making sure that I have enough class time to go over all of the readings so that you can have a clear understanding of them, and I'm here to support you through the whole process of reading all of that material. But if you click on that reading list link, here's the list right here. This is the original list that the department gave me. I've changed a few things, we've taken a couple things out, but this is what it looks like. I'm going to scroll through it for you so that you can see what I'm talking about. So this is the list for the first half of the semester. Then here's the midterm. There's a full-length play, Othello, first 2 books of Paradise Lost, that's about 80 pages. Gulliver's Travels, we're going to be reading the whole part 1 of that. That's, I don't know, 70, 90 pages. Then the midterm. Then we start with the romantic period after the midterm, and we have all these readings. There's another play, another novel. So, and then the final exam. So getting all that into the semester, I hope you can understand why I made the decision to put it on a calendar and why I took a few things off and why I wanted to check the exams to see what are my best bets for removing things from the list. So there are some things that I've taken off this list, but this is the original list that they gave me. So reading will be your focus for this term. And so I've made some other decisions about how the course runs to give you enough time to read. Not only will you be reading the literature, but they've also assigned a lot of historical background, because you have to understand the history of what the essayist is writing about in order to understand the essay in a lot of cases. So there's a lot of background material. Maybe some of it you'll already know if you've taken European history, maybe. So some of it might be familiar to you, but there's also a good amount of reading just to understand the historical context for some of the pieces that we'll be reading. But like I said, I don't want you to worry. I am here to support you through all of that and help you through the process. That's why I'm having all the other class meetings. Okay, so there's only 16 grades for this term, 12 discussions. Now, discussions are written discussions in the discussion board on Blackboard. They don't mean discussions, us talking. The discussions are formal, where you post a minimum 500-word response to their topic that's given, and then you have to respond with at least 150 words to 3 classmates. There are 12 of those throughout the term, and those 12 together count as much as the midterm or the final exam. Each one of those are 20% of the grade for the term. So the discussions are complex and often ask you to intertwine your understanding of 2 or 3 different works that we've studied before you did that discussion. You can see that I've put the due dates for those discussions already on the calendar. I put them in pink. They're always due on Fridays. You'll also see that prior to that date, that due date, I have it set on the calendar so that I can go over the topic with you, maybe answer clarifying questions, make sure everybody's clear on what's being asked so that we can have the most successful outcome on those discussion questions. This next Friday, for example, which is a whole week before discussion number 1 is due, I'm going to talk about how those discussion boards are graded. I'm going to give you the rubric, and I'll show you discussion topic 1 so that you can start thinking about it, and we'll go through it so that you're prepared. So I did that throughout the whole term prior to the discussion being due so that you can have the most successful grades possible on those discussions, since it's 20% of the overall grade. Then you've got until the following Monday. They have it set up for the Sunday, but I just don't like making stuff due on Sunday. So I extended it to Monday. So I followed their due dates on this one, but I didn't on that one. And I'm giving you until Monday to do the responses. You have to respond to 3 classmates on those discussions. There are also 2 analytical papers. One is longer than the other, just like first semester. And so they have different weights. I'll talk about that in a minute. And there is a midterm right before spring break, and then there's a final exam. I already talked about how I'm going to be having class to go over material on all of these dates, every possible class period, and another link to the calendar, but we've already looked at that. All right, so attendance is a little bit different this term because we're meeting every class period. Last term, I had to have formatives, especially on the days we weren't meeting, so that I could give you credit for attendance. So this term, because I'm holding Zoom class every class day, that's not necessary. If you are in the Zoom class, I will just mark you present for that day. So if you come, then you're present. You don't need to do a formative unless you are not present in class. So there will be a formative every day, but it's only required for people to gain credit, like the attendance credit. So if you're in class, you're present. If you're not, for whatever reason, then you'll need to, by midnight, again, because that's how East has it set up for attendance, you'll have to go formative and answer the question there. Now, the question is going to be the same every single day for those absent people, because I'm worried that if you miss class, then you didn't hear me go over those 90 pages of the text or take questions and clarify some sections or whatever. So if you missed that, you can certainly go watch the video, but I don't know if you watched the video or not, or if you have any questions. So if you're absent, the topic on the formative will always be, what question do you have about this week's readings? And I'm going to ask you to actually formulate a question and not say, I don't have any questions. That's not helpful. And then I'm going to respond to you with an answer to that question in order to help you. So if you miss class, it's okay, but you need to regain attendance by doing the formative, and then that way I can communicate with you a little bit about the readings. So I think that that will be better. You can spend the time that you would have spent on those formatives reading, so that you can prepare for the next class period. So those are the main differences in the courses in between first semester and second semester. So if you click on course details, also STC has not opened up Concourse, which is the way that we do the syllabus. So there is not a way for me to do the syllabus for this course yet. Hopefully they'll have it available next week or something. I think a week from Saturday, we go to their staff development. So I will go over that syllabus with you when they make it available and I can customize it. But until then, I will give you sort of like, the, basics of the syllabus. So the course description is here. This is a survey. A survey means that we're not going in depth into anything. We're going and you'll even see that some of the pieces we read the beginning and that's it. Or we read the first chapter and the last chapter, and I'll just summarize what happens in between. So you're not going in depth in the majority of the cases. There are a few cases where we'll read the whole work, but for the most part, like Canterbury Tales, I'm going to have you read just a little bit of the general prologue and then 2 of the tales out of 25. So the survey means that we're kind of skimming the surface of British literature. We're not, diving deep. So we're starting with Anglo-Saxon, which is the earliest period that we can call anything English. And we'll be studying prose, poetry, drama, fiction. And this part's important in relation to their historical, linguistic, and cultural context. So you have to be able to say what is culturally different about a work from the Middle Ages compared to the 17th century. And you have to be able to say how the language changes, say, from early Anglo-Saxon to the 16th century because of the linguistic aspect here. I should be able to give you a work and you should be able to tell me that is from the Romantic period or that is from the Victorian period. You need to know the qualities of the literature from all of these different periods. Text will be selected from a diverse group of authors and traditions. And then I've already talked about these requirements. There are 6 units of study instead of weekly. What they have is a unit of study, and they have 6 of them based on time periods. I'll still give you, once we get into Blackboard, I'll still give you weekly modules, but each unit takes about 2 weeks or so. So there are 6, the Anglo-Saxon period and the Middle Ages. We're going to be starting with Anglo-Saxon this week and moving into Middle Ages next week. Then comes the 16th and 17th centuries, the Restoration in the 18th century, the Romantic period, the Victorian era, and then the 20th century. Interestingly enough, their last reading assignment is like from 1950, and that's 70 years ago. So I'll probably be adjusting that at the end too, because some things have happened in the last 70 years in literature. And then these are the 4 questions that we'll be applying to each one of those periods. Things like, what are the main characteristics of literature of that period? Who are the significant authors? In what ways does literature show the evolution of the English language in that period? And how does the literature of this period reflect its historical time and culture? So I do have a chart that I'm going to share with you probably Thursday or maybe next Tuesday. It's ready, I just don't think you need it yet. And it's set up so that each of the time periods is listed, and then each one of those questions is listed across the tops. It's just a note-taking tool for you if you would want to use it. And that way you can keep track of the answers to these questions for each one of these periods in kind of like one document. So that should be helpful to you, especially on the midterm and the final exam. Grade distribution, I kind of already talked about it, but this one lays it all out for you. So discussions, the midterm, and the final exam are all worth 20%. The first essay is worth 15%, and the second essay is worth 25%. So the thing with the most weight in the term is the second essay. I mean, unless you wanted to combine all the discussions or the 2 exams together, but. That's how it works. I don't anticipate giving very many other grades to the East gradebook. I think the gradebooks will be pretty similar. They have been other terms too for this course. So, you know, the grades at East are really just going to come from whatever has been completed at that point in time, you know, like 2 discussions at the end of the 6 weeks or something, whatever has been on the calendar up to that point. Oh, you know what I should put on the calendar is the ends of the 6 weeks, right? I'll go back and do that. Okay, then comes all the stuff. These are just all of the objectives that they give about the course. Basically, it's can you read? Do you understand the historical context of what you're reading? Can you write and communicate your ideas about what you're reading and in the given context, etc. And then after that, you have that list that I already demonstrated to you of all of the reading assignments. Now, what they don't show on here are the page numbers. So what you don't know is that the Introduction to the Middle Ages is like 27 pages long. I'm going to try to shorten that stuff down for you to just the essentials, but you know, read that plus these 30 pages of this text for Thursday is how it basically works. So let's go back to the home section here. Are there any questions so far? No. All right, so what I did was on the main page here, I just outlined what your assignments are for each week to keep you on track with your reading. I'm not really going to know if you're up to date with your reading until a discussion is due. If a discussion is due, like the first one is on the 22nd, over here on the calendar, that discussion is going to ask you to integrate your ideas about Beowulf and Sir Gawain and the Green Knight, which we're going to be reading over the next 2 weeks. And I'll be having some time to talk about those readings. So if you come to turn in this discussion and you go to answer the question, but you can't synthesize those two because you only read one of them and you're behind in your reading, you won't be able to do the discussion question. And you won't be able to converse with other people about it. So that's why I want to make sure that I have these class periods where I can go over the material and answer your questions as we go. So these are set up based on what I'm going to talk about during those class periods. So for this coming Thursday, you need to come to class having read the first roughly half of Beowulf. It starts on page 72 of the PDF and it goes to page 94 of the PDF. These are PDF page numbers, by the way, because I don't think anybody has their book this early on. I think most people prefer the PDF, but y'all can let me know. To prepare for that, you need to watch a video lecture of a little bit of background that I did on Anglo-Saxon literature. I'm not sure everybody understands the Anglo-Saxon time period. I don't know if you've studied that sufficiently to understand some things that happen in Beowulf and the way things are structured. So I did a little video lecture over this slideshow. So here's the slideshow and here's the video lecture that I did over that. So that will be some background for you. That's instead of reading the whole background thing on Anglo-Saxon that you have in your text. That's, I don't know, 14 pages long or something. I made a video to help you out. Same thing over here. I took what was in the textbook and I kind of distilled it down to, you know, just the basics of what you need to know. So I'm trying to, you know, sort of reduce things where I can. Another thing that I want you to do before you start reading Beowulf is to familiarize yourself with the characters. Beowulf is the oldest known long work that we have in what we could call English. And it's a Viking story. It's a story from Denmark. So the video will explain why a Denmark story is the first story written down in English. But their names are very strange. And as you start to read Beowulf, you're going to, in your mind, come up with a pronunciation of the characters. And then you're going to come to class on Thursday and I'm going to be pronouncing them this way. So I think it's better before you start reading if you kind of have this one on the side so that you can start to get used to the pronunciation. For example, this character right here, ECGTHEOW, when you're reading, you might go ENGL2321, like in your head as you're trying to figure out who the characters are in the exposition of the story. Well, this is pronounced ENGL. And if you don't know that, you're going to come into class on Thursday and be confused because it doesn't match up with what was in your head when you were reading. So I put some pronunciations in here for you. I also made a video. If you wanted to watch it, you can click here and I will pronounce all of the names of the characters that are highlighted in yellow. They're the most common names that we run across in Beowulf. So I'll go through in that video and pronounce them, and so you can start to hear what those names sound like. But they have very old, Viking names, and so we have to approximate a pronunciation of those names. So I made that for you so that you could prepare. And then you need to read pages 72 to 94, and I'm going to go into more depth over that section. Could you come to class on Thursday not having read Beowulf? Yeah, I'm not going to know, but it might be confusing for you. So you might want to make sure that you read it. I'm not going to tell a summary of those pages. I'm going to bring up some key elements and, kind of answer questions that you might have. I might point to a few key passages, explain why they're important, that kind of thing. Some spots that are more challenging to read, I might go over those. So if you haven't read it, I don't know if that discussion would be helpful to you or not. There is an audio, a very good audio version of this translation of Beowulf. And so if you like to listen while you read, that could be helpful to you. It's on YouTube and you can kind of follow along and listen. I like to, when I'm listening to an audiobook and reading at the same time, I like to speed up the audio so that I'm reading at a certain pace. I don't know if that will work because this is some older stuff, but obviously it's in translation. Reading Anglo-Saxon is like reading a foreign language, so I'm not going to assign for you to read it in Anglo-Saxon, but it's a translation. It's translated by a modern poet. He went back and went to the original manuscript. But Beowulf was probably written down around 700, the year 700 CE. So it was a story even longer than that. It was an oral story that people told by word of mouth and for entertainment purposes and to keep their history alive because they didn't have a written language. So this predates written English. Eventually it was written down and that's how we still have it today. But in any case, I did put an audio here in case that's helpful to you while you're reading. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for you to work through this material. Any questions on what we're looking at for Thursday? I know that's a lot on the first day, but if I waited 2 weeks to start the course, then you would have, even more to read each day. So I don't know what to tell you about that. I feel like it's better just to go ahead and get started since we have to have a class meeting anyway. Any clarification questions or anything like that? I think it's going to be a great term. There's a lot of great literature we're going to read. We're going to read selections from Paradise Lost, a lot of famous works, Shakespearean drama, a lot of iconic poetry. I'm looking forward to, spending some time with you on those things. So I think, the reading is the tough part, but discussing great literature is the fun part. So that's the part that we can look forward to. So hopefully you'll enjoy the material, and I'm here to support you through the whole process. So if there aren't any questions, I guess that's it for today, and I will see you on Thursday at the same time. Bye.
Alrighty, bye, Miss.
Bye, Miss.
Bye. Stick around if you have any questions.